I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I enjoy these forums, hear what's on your minds, and that's part of how a representative republic democracy works. We're at a crossroads, this country. This election, not just this single election, but election across the country here next Tuesday, a week from tonight, is very important, the most important election in our lifetime. And it all goes back to the root problem of deficit spending. We've racked up, when Nancy Pelosi took over as Speaker and Zach Space became Congressman, the national debt was $8 trillion. Now it's over $13 trillion. These deficits are, like I said earlier, are risking our national security. At best, they're mortgaging the future for our kids. At worst, we're going to give them a country that's not going to be free, and they're going to lose their God-given constitutional rights. Because when you don't have your economic freedom, you lose your other freedoms. So that's why this is so important. You've got to fix the economy, and people got to feel financially, have some security, financial security. They can't be worried about if they don't have a job or if they're going to lose their job tomorrow. Because when they don't have that financial security, then you have bigger government, more intrusive government like we've seen, higher costs, higher taxes, and we don't pile on new things like energy taxes, Obamacare, that's going to bankrupt the country, that's going to ration care and erode our medical health care in general. So we've got to fix the uncertainty. All these policies coming out of Washington, D.C. are creating huge uncertainty. And our private sector, this is what made the country great, is our entrepreneurship, our innovation, and the American spirit. And it's the private sector that's made this country great, that's created prosperity. And all the uncertainty coming out of Washington, our private sector is kind of sitting on their hands because they're afraid the risk takers aren't going to risk the capital when they have uncertainty about where we are headed in the future. And put this in perspective. There's three ways we create prosperity. One is we develop our natural resources responsibly, we mine it or drill for it. Number two, we raise or grow our agriculture. Or number three, we make it manufacturing. If we're not doing those three things, we're not developing, creating prosperity, jobs, and opportunities. And everything this government, this Congress, and our Congressman's doing right now is putting up hurdles, barriers against the risk takers who take the risks to create the prosperity in the private sector. Higher energy costs, higher taxes, burdensome regulations. Those are all barriers or hurdles. And if we're not doing that, then we drop. We erode as a country, as the greatest country in the nation. We're not going to be the greatest country in the nation. So that's why we've got to fix this economy, get the private sector moving again, get people back to work, and that will enhance our constitutional freedoms and make us strong again. And we just absolutely have to do that. And the way we do that is we cut the deficit spending. We didn't get in about today about how we do that. One thing, we got something called the domestic discretionary spending. It's grown more than double digits the last 2 years. We got to roll that back to fiscal year 08 levels. It was too high then, but that's a good start. Then we got to have a serious talk with the American people about other things. Because there's going to have to be, we have to talk to people, the American people as adults. And I think the American people realize that we've got ourselves in a big hole because of bad public policies and deficit spending. And Congress just created more uncertainty. They went home, and we got January 1st, we got the largest tax increase in American history coming. And that's going to put us right back in or worse than we just went through in the economic meltdown. They're irresponsible. They neglected their responsibility. They neglected their responsibility and let the EPA go crazy about regulating carbon dioxide. That's absurd. That's a bureaucracy out of control and unaccountable now. So that creates more uncertainty. So employers, innovators, they're not going to go out here and risk capital when they don't know what's coming next, what's coming tomorrow by this federal government that's so intrusive and overbearing. So the changes, one, deficit spending, that's a real problem. It's a national security issue and all the things I've said. Number two, we've got to roll back these massive tax increases. We don't do things like Obamacare. We don't pass cap and trade the national energy tax and all this other nonsense. And number three, we've got to have serious discussion about regulatory reform in this country, because we need, in a free market capitalist society, you do need some level of regulations, but they got to make common sense, economic sense, and not just empower bureaucrats in Washington. And Washington's they're living in a bubble there, and they're out of control. And we do those three things and start reining these things in. The private sector will unleash the American spirit and the innovators and the entrepreneurs, and this private sector will take off, because I can tell you, I meet with business people and employers every day, and there's a hell of a lot of pent-up demand out there. And if they had the right signals from Washington that we're moving firm economic ground in the future, they're ready to risk that capital and invest in their businesses and hire people back and create jobs. And that gets us going, and then once again, we'll be in a long point in the future as being the greatest country in the world, where other people in the world look to us for opportunities, hope,